Welcome everybody to the Great Break podcast. I'm Marina Wells and I'm here with Chantal. We're going to be discussing today divine, sacred, feminine energy. And Chantal is here to discuss her experience with birth, her business in regards to being a birth doula, and her entrepreneurship in creating Lavendula Skincare products for women who are entering that sacred feminine energy, not just for those that are pregnant, but what her products can also bring to the table in sacred feminine energies. I'm super excited to have her here today. We are going to jump right into this. Welcome to all our new listeners. And this is Chantal. She's an amazing feminine energy. She's bringing so much to the table. She's really helping empowering women in the birth process. We're going to get into her birth stories. We're going to get into birth trauma. We're going to get into a whole bunch of stuff in this show of what sacred feminine energies are in alignment and how to bring that into your business. So Chantal, welcome to the podcast.
You.
It is so great to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk about this again. So
yeah, because we recorded and then I forgot to record, and then
we had a good practice run, but
good practice. Yeah, definitely good practice run. But I think that it's going to be much more aligned. I think we can go deeper now because there was so much coming up last time that I wanted to talk to you more in depth, and you've had some experience in your own business and your own life experience. Things have been unfolding amazingly for you. So let's go into it. Let's talk about your sacred feminine energy, what brought you into all of this, being a doula, into your business, your pregnancies. Like, let's just go with it. Let's
So as you know, like I started out, I used to work as a social worker, and then I kind of transitioned into the corporate world, working as for a consulting company. And that was never really like my passion, but I was doing it, I made it work. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, that's when I started sort of researching like more into birth and like natural birth and things like that. And after she was born, I had the idea to start Lavendula Skincare, the skincare line, but it was going to be more for facial skincare. That was my original plan. But then COVID happened, so my plans got put on hold. And it was always in the back of my mind, though. I already had set up the LLC and, wanted to get started. But then when I was pregnant with my son, and when I was giving birth, when I was in labor at the hospital, smelling my oils and getting my doula was massaging me with, the almond oil, and I was sniffing like the lavender and the clary sage, and I was like, oh, like it just kind of hit me like I need to make my products, Lavendula Skincare, for pregnant women and for women in labor, because it's such like a sacred time. And even at the hospital, like all the doctors were like, wow, it smells so good in here. Like the labor delivery room was so relaxing. With like we had the essential oils going, we had the music, we had the flameless candles. Like we were trying to make the hospital, a sacred space as much as it could be for my son's birth. So it was while I was, in labor that I had the vision. And then, when he was just a month old, I just started like, I don't know if it was channeling or what, but I just started writing down all my ideas. I made my website, I set up the Shopify, I did all this stuff. And I also was just like, I'm going to be a doula. Like, I want to be a doula.
You knew it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I would have never, if someone would have said, would you be a doula? It was just never something that was in my mind, but it just kind of got channeled into me during that birth process. I swear.
It's amazing how these souls come in. As you were speaking this time around and we're doing this, it's like, why didn't I pick up on this in the first time? Because what I realized was your daughter brought in that feminine energy and first changed you into like natural birth, because you had natural birth with her. But then the masculine energy of your son gave you the direction of the vision. So it's like this yin yang balance. I just noticed
that's very true.
Right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think with her, I had the idea. And then with him, it kind of got like more on paper, like it got into action, you know?
The details, right. So, okay, so let's
Yeah.
go into your daughter's birth because you said before that you were in the corporate world, you were doing your whole thing,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you like are having a natural birth. Like there's a lot of women out
Yeah.
there that are moving between those fields and then trying to be in their sacred feminine and give natural birth, but it's a scary process. So
Yeah.
let's go into your transformation into that.
Yeah, it's actually really difficult because, like, if a lot of when you first become pregnant, like, there's a lot of fear. And
Mhm.
I had read some books and watched a documentary before I ever got pregnant, like, in my early 20s. I think it was
Okay.
called The Business of Being Born. And so I
Oh, I
had a
saw
little,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Ricky
interesting.
Lake, Ricky Lake.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. And so I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that it would be cool to have a natural birth. However, I had some fertility struggles. So where I ended up, I was just with a regular OB, like just someone I stumbled upon. And it wasn't until I met my doula with my daughter that she was kind of like, have you thought about doing a home birth? And the thing that she said to me was, she said, you want to have a natural birth, you want to deliver vaginally, because I let her know that was like something passionate for me. I didn't really want to have a C-section. And she was
Right.
like, well, if you go in the hospital and you have a C-section, you won't have a chance to have a home birth. You'll have to
Right.
have another hospital birth, another C-section or a VBAC.
Right.
So
Right.
she kind of made me think like, oh, this is my only chance. So because when I got pregnant, so I kind of had to stop working midway through my pregnancy. I started working
Okay.
from home, which was a blessing. Not everyone can do that,
Yeah.
but I was able to do that, and I just kind of became super focused on like preparing myself for the birth. I read the
Right.
Bradley method of natural childbirth and started doing all the things to prepare myself for like having a home birth. And I did. I was able to birth her at home, and like it went great. However, there was like some complications after her birth that I ended up
Right.
having to go to the hospital. And so I got to see kind of both sides.
Right.
But it was a huge transition because yeah, it was just like it's really hard when you're in like the corporate world to be have the time to even research all that stuff, you know?
Right. And we doubt
Yeah.
ourselves as feminines too. We're given so much in our world, first of all, even being in the corporate world per se, that we have to
Yeah.
think a certain way and be in this masculine dominated energy
Right.
where we're more activated in the masculine aspects of ourselves. And also we
Yeah.
find ourselves pregnant and we
Mhm.
want to do, I had the same experience as you. I wanted to have
Yeah.
natural birth and do all of those things and research. And I too then had a doula. I had an obstetrician and then
Oh
a
yeah.
doula.
Yeah.
And it was
Very
the doula,
similar.
very similar. Why didn't we
Yeah.
discover this the first time?
I
Obviously,
know.
we could. So I understand she brought in that feminine energy for me. Right now,
Yeah.
I discovered in our first recording, like I realized I had birth trauma with my first,
Yeah.
right, which
Mhm.
I didn't realize before. So now what I'm feeling is like, so when you went in with your daughter's first birth and you had an amazing experience, you said that things turned or things
Yeah.
went a little bit different. So you had a very contrasting experience.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it was like I had this beautiful natural birth. I labored at home. It was quick. Um,
Right.
it was extremely painful, I will not lie. But,
Yep.
I did it. I did it, and I pushed for an hour, which is like pretty unheard of for like a first time mom, like birthing at home. And so she was born. It was beautiful. Like she was on my chest. Like I was in love with her, and I was
Yeah.
just like in ecstasy. I didn't have any meds, so like I had all those natural endorphins going.
Right.
And yeah, then my placenta, like I noticed my midwife seemed a little concerned, and I was kind of like, what's going on? And so my placenta was stuck. And I think it possibly was coming out in like pieces, which is never a good sign. Um,
Oh,
so she told me to get up and squat to try and get the placenta to come out. And
right.
I just started seeing stars, like complete. I was about to
Oh,
black. I'm like, I'm going to pass out. Like, call the ambulance. This is not normal. I've never felt this. And I
Right.
guess I had already been losing quite a bit of blood. So it just went
Uh,
downhill from there. The EMS came, had to go under anesthesia and get my placenta removed manually, thankfully.
right.
But then my whole hospital stay, I went from being, home birth, want to do everything natural, to thrown in the hospital in an emergency situation.
Right.
And so I was like very abrasive towards everything because I wasn't very trusting of, the hospital system. And even the nurse
Hmm.
said to me, she's like, "Have you ever been in the hospital?" Because every time they were I'm like, "What's that? What are you doing to me? Why are you hemorrhaging?" But I'm still small. But yeah, so it was like this crazy contrast, and I was not prepared for it.
Right.
I wanted the whole point of having a home birth is I wanted to be able to have those first few days at home with my baby. And
Exactly.
that was just like completely ripped away from me, right?
Right. And I think it's important, like we're bringing that to the table, that we're telling women like we are very much pro like doing things naturally and whatever else as best as
Yeah.
you can. But the hospital is there for a reason. There's medical
Yeah.
interventions for a reason because things like this can go wrong. And
Yeah.
again, we don't want to instill fear with our
Right.
women and our sisters, but I think it's good to understand different things that can happen, even because I'm very against medical
Yeah.
intervention myself. Like I don't really like it.
Yeah.
Um, and I ended up having to birth in the hospital. And like you, like with my
Yeah.
second, we had the flameless candles and the
Yeah.
meditation music and the whole bit.
Yeah.
But my first was also a little bit traumatic. So let's go into that a little bit more about your births. So you had this whole contrasting aspect with your daughter, and then it was love at first sight, and then all of a sudden you're in the hospital. And then did you have the idea for your business after that point with her, or was it before? You
It
had it a little bit
was
with
I always in the back of my mind since I was like a teenager wanted to do some sort
okay,
of body care, but it really get started when she was born in October. In January, and after she was born, I started to be like, I should really do this. I should
right,
really
okay,
start this business. But then, as soon as I got everything filed, like I said, like COVID happened, and it
right, and
all,
all that happened.
yeah,
So then let's go into your son's birth then. So something ignited with your daughter and all of that. And
hmm
I wanted to
hmm
bring this up too because I want the feminines out there to hear how, you know, childbirth, pregnancy, conception, all these creative energies come in and start infusing our 3D reality. That
yeah,
what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing are real. I just wanted to reiterate that it's real for them. These are
yeah.
real, tangible visions and experiences, right? So the details came in with your son. So talk to us a little bit about your son's birth because you had a vision apparently while you
Yeah.
were birthing. Like that's crazy cool.
Yeah. So, I like as you said, I knew I had to be in the hospital with my son just because of the complications with my daughter's birth,
Yeah.
and all that aftermath. So I was in the hospital, and I had already gained sort of like a new understanding and appreciation for women just
Mhm.
based on what happened to me, knowing that had this
Right.
been, say, like 100 years ago, I would not have made it. Like we didn't have all these interventions that would have saved me. And it was like this realization of like all of our ancestors and the women that came before us, the
Yeah.
how serious childbirth is, and why
Yeah.
there's like I feel like there's probably like a collective trauma towards that, but I won't go into that right now. But I
Yeah.
knew that how serious childbirth was, and I was like, what, I have to be in the hospital this time. Let me just make the best of it. So I have my
Right.
doula. I picked out an OB who was more on the natural side, who I knew would kind of allow me to birth more and let my body go into labor naturally. And I did end up having to be induced, but
Okay.
it went fine. It was still no epidural. I was still no pitocin. So like it was
Right.
a
So it's a
success.
natural induction as best as
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, so it was kind of really while I was laboring that I had the
Okay.
vision. um, I was like sitting on that birthing ball and like my doula was there and she was giving me actually like a back massage. And it was really weird because it was like this realization of like this feeling of like another feminine like really caring for you. And like I
Yeah.
feel like that was like a like a it was like the feminine energy, And I was like, this is just so nice. Like she's literally massaging my lower back through this horrible pain and
Yeah.
making me feel so amazing. And I don't think it was then that I realized I wanted to be a doula, but I did realize I need to create products. So
Mm.
it was kind of like a vision where I just was like birth oil, belly oil, boob oil. It's just like, and I just
In the
thought of all,
nurturing, while you're being
yeah,
nurtured, I love
yeah,
that. You're being the mother's being mothered. I love that.
right. And while I was like, obviously my son, when he was coming, he was descending down into my pelvis. That's what's causing me all this pain. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. And so yeah, I had that vision and like I kind of just tucked it away because I had a lot
Hmm.
going on.
Hmm.
And he was born. It was a fast birth again, once again, and
And
he.
did you go through
Sorry,
trauma with him as
I
well? Was
did.
it
Yeah,
so
I
you birthed
actually.
naturally and then
Yeah, I ended up hemorrhaging. So pretty
again? Yeah.
severe
Yeah.
again. Yeah, and thankfully, thank goodness I was at the hospital because this hemorrhaging, it wasn't like retained placenta. The placenta came out. It was just like an immediate postpartum hemorrhage, but like very severe. So
Right.
even my doctor said it was one of like the worst he's seen. Like he was
Right.
like, yeah, that was more than normal, like a lot more than normal. But and I kind of had like a moment where I was like praying because I thought it was like a
Mhm.
near death experience. I thought that I wasn't going to make it because I could
Right.
feel the rate, and I looked at my doula, and she was just like, she did not look okay. I
Oh,
looked at
wow.
like everyone was like all the doctors, everyone was terrified, and I was like, oh, I'm dying. I
It
just
was
went
really
into
touch and go. Yeah.
Yeah, I went into prayer, and I was just like praying like for my kids, and it was just like this crazy moment. And yeah, I don't know, they were like doing the fungus massage. They gave me a whole bunch. At that point they had to give me a whole bunch of meds to stop the
Right.
hemorrhage.
For
They were
sure.
injecting needles in my leg. I was
Yeah.
like, well, it stopped, and I was like, okay. I was so grateful when it stopped, and I was so happy because I was like, they saved me, and I was like, God saved me. I felt like there was
Hmm.
angels around me, and I was not meant to
Definitely.
die. Yeah, and I was like, if I was saved from this, like, I need to like, there's like stuff for me to do here. Like, I cannot sit
Definitely.
because with my daughter, I was stuck in trauma for quite a while. I was like, I made it through this time, and it made me
Yep.
realize how last time was worse because last time I needed 3 blood transfusions. This
Wow.
time, yeah, this time I hemorrhaged, but I didn't even need a blood transfusion.
Because they caught it probably and they
Yeah,
were able to get it. I love
yeah,
that you're bringing that up because it even challenges me, like with the whole medical field and stuff. Like I'm very kind of like I'm a little granola, right? So
yeah,
hearing you having these experiences and the touch and go and all of that is so important with our women claiming their power, especially when they're going through childbirth, to know, you can still have your natural birth, but there are those other things that, even if you're against medical or whatever else, because I know like some people sit on both spectrums. It's like it's either I'm with an
yeah,
obstetrician or I am going with natural and that's it.
right,
And I think you're really helping bridge that
yeah,
perception to be
for
open
sure,
that there's a reason that the hospitals are there, but there's also things that the hospitals take away from us as
yeah,
well that we have to be aware of. So what do you feel that bridging point is? Like what do the hospitals take away that you feel take away from our feminine power as birthing mothers
yeah,
and vice versa? Like we know what the hospitals are doing for you, but
right. And
the other
so,
aspect.
yeah, so I mean, and even with being a doula, that's kind of where my passion lies. It's like bridging the
Right.
gap. So, like, a lot of women do want to birth naturally in a hospital. And for a lot of hospital providers, that's just unheard of or
Right.
unseen. So, like, it's very abnormal for an OB to watch a woman not want to have an epidural. And I
Right.
think
Mine
that,
was like that too. Like
yeah.
very like, yeah, yeah.
And
Right.
so like even I was at a birth this past last week, and they wanted to give her epidural at 9.5 centimeters, and the OB was panicking. Yeah. And so I could see that the OB possibly, and we have to take into account their bias as well. Like they have
Mhm.
seen it all, so they're sometimes operating out of fear. Like, maybe last time their client was at 9.5 and pushing, and, they weren't
Right.
progressing. They ended up in a C-section. So, like, they start prepping her for a C-section. But as a doula, it's your job to believe in that person, that they can do it, that their body is made for this, that they, like, if we were to do nothing, most cases, the baby would be born.
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
a hospital that puts all these interventions and time constraints. And a lot of them are good because there are certain things that, help make sure baby and mom are healthy. But there's a
Right.
lot of interventions that are unnecessary. For example,
Right.
an IV, like you don't need to have an IV when you're in the hospital, but most doctors are most comfortable that you have an IV, because in the event you need an epidural, you need at least 2 bags of saline first. And
Right.
they don't want to be trying to struggle for an IV in an emergency situation. But it's like, is it medically necessary? No, it just makes their
No.
job easier,
Right.
or makes them more money by giving you epidural and more meds and this and that. And
It helps
so,
them with their progression to control the situation.
yes,
And
and they
what
love
you're
the control.
exactly. And then what you
Yeah,
brought up too, which I didn't realize, was I didn't think about our doctors, the medical staff, having trauma as well, based on, first of all, maybe not even knowing or seeing natural birth. Because I know my
yeah,
OB had never even witnessed or
yeah,
natural, no medication birth. And I think,
yeah.
acting from that trauma of not being able to have control over a situation of what they do know
Yes, exactly. And
very well.
all they know is like the medical way to help, right? They're not necessarily trained in, like, that's where a doula comes in. Like when I see, okay, mom is at 9.5 centimeters and like baby's right there, like maybe
Right.
some position changes. Let's do some squatting. Let's
Right.
do some like open your pelvis, like different things like that. Whereas the
Yeah.
doctor is more like, I need to get the baby out. So they're thinking
Right.
epidural, C-section, like that's where their mind goes. And that's
Right.
why a lot of women, if they don't have a doula, they're not informed, end up in that situation when maybe it wasn't necessary.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And exactly. And then it takes away the power from the birthing mother who's already in a place of like, especially if it's your first birth, like, oh my God, I want to do it naturally. Is this something I really
Yeah.
need to do? And having a doula there really helps advocate
Yeah.
for
And
the
with both of my
mom.
births, I don't think I could have gotten the baby out without like my doula in the pushing phase, like being like, you can do
Right?
this. You're so close. You just gotta
There's
keep going. It's
it's
so underestimated.
it's so amazing. There's something so powerful that I think we're missing in our sisterhood. When women
Yeah.
come together to birth, there was a
Yes.
reason why women
Yeah.
used to circulate women back in the day and birth, like that
Yeah.
energy. My doulas
Yes.
are most like, I don't even remember. I mean, I remember my husband at the time there, but it was like about me, the baby, and the doula. I was like, that
Right.
energy was just next
Just,
level.
yeah, it's a very like feminine experience. And like a lot of times, like in my doula business, we like train the men on how to support the wife, because a lot of
Oh,
times,
I love that.
yeah,
I wish
yeah.
my husband had gotten that. Maybe I would have changed things up.
I know, because a lot of men are scared and like they don't know what to do. And when it gets to that scary point and they see their wife out of control, and maybe they're used to them being in control, they get freaked out. Like they
Right.
get freaked out.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, and that's why it's good for a doula to kind of encourage and remind both of them, like, hey, this is normal. Like if she said she wants a natural birth, when she's going through transition, she's probably gonna say, "Cut the baby out!" Like, ah, oops,
Totally. Oh,
you're
I
not
screamed for epidural. I did. I did. I screamed. I was like, give me the damn epidural. They're like, Rena, you're like 9 cents. Like, this is not going to happen.
right. that's why it's good for the husband to know that in advance that she'll likely do that, and then also to have your team be on board. Because in a hospital setting, if
Right.
a doctor hears a woman say that, that's their
Exactly.
consent. They don't have to listen to the doula or the husband at that point. So
Oh, I
that's
didn't
why
know
it's good
that.
having everyone on board, and having a doula be like, hey, like, if say she says that during a contraction, to maybe wait till the contraction's over, and hey, I just want to remind you, when we talked before, like you mentioned on your birth plan, you really didn't want to have epidural. You're already, 9 centimeters. You're getting really close. Are you sure? Because the doctor heard you say that and they're prepping you for the epidural. Are you sure
Right.
that's what you want? And then they can discuss and just take a moment to pause. I had the doctor at the last birth I was at look at the husband and say, "You're speaking for her, and she's in pain, and I'm
Oh.
weeping." Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, so that's kind of where I think a doula is so invaluable.
Yeah, completely, completely. I would have never
Yeah,
been able to do natural, honestly, if my doula was not there advocating for me because
yeah,
you lose it. You lose it at a certain point, especially when it's your first. I know with my second, you kind of know, you remember the memories come back. You're like, oh
right.
damn, I remember this. But
Yeah,
but yeah, they really advocate for you. And so your how you've changed now. So you've had your birth, you've had your visions, you are now training and working as a doula and created this amazing business with Lavendula, uh, boob oil, and all of these different products that you
hmm,
have. Um, Tell us more about how you bridged that corporate mom, Chantal, before you had your babies, to where you're at this point in regards to what you're bringing to the world, the changes and everything that you've kind of come full
yeah,
circle because you're still using your business side to you,
right.
right? But it's morphed, it's changed now.
Yeah, it's crazy because even though I was like in the corporate world back then, I feel that I was super like disempowered. Like,
Mm,
yeah, so it wasn't like I was just like boss lady. Like, no, it was like really like I was just kind of doing what I was told and like not living to
right.
my passion and like doing what I looking back it seems to me like meaningless tasks. I know I'm not to like knock anyone that's like
Yeah,
crunching numbers and things like that. I still have to do that, for my business, and I
for
still
sure.
do the bookkeeping for the business I was working at before, just much less. But yeah, I was very disempowered. I wasn't in touch with my femininity. I actually lived in such like a male dominated world that I thought that being a doula was silly. Like I didn't really
Right?
think that, but like my mindset was so much of like the patriarchal, like being a doula is not a good career. Being a doula, what's the worth
Right.
of being a doula? Where
Yeah.
I was like now coming on the other side and having my children and getting in touch with my femininity, my feminine energy, and seeing the value in like the sisterhood and not viewing everything from the patriarchal mentality.
Yes.
It's like understanding how sacred that is to be like birthing baby souls into this world and supporting women, and like to think that I thought it was
Oh,
silly or like a silly career. It seemed like something a hippie would do. Like those are just
right?
all. So I feel like I've come full circle, and I feel I'm much more empowered now because it's like I'm doing something where it's very valuable. I feel knowledgeable. I feel empowered. It's something I'm passionate about. So
Mhm.
I've studied it more and I'm more confident in my abilities. I've given birth, I've been a mother, and I feel so much more confident in that. And
Well,
also just like working with women, they're more appreciative.
yeah, and I love what you were saying there at the beginning where it was like you're still punching numbers, you're still doing the corporate stuff, but there was something where you weren't open to maybe
Yes.
this path, right? Because and I see that so much even in myself, when I started reading tarot and doing all the spiritual
Yeah.
stuff and even the podcast. It's like I
Yeah.
was really, I was project manager, business analyst for government, very
Yeah.
like masculine.
Right. Yeah.
And we take those things, and I just wanted for the sisters out there listening to this, you know again, like those two different spectrums of like, okay, you're going to have, you know, the hippie granola stuff, or you're going to have the systematic stuff, and there's no in between. And like you said, we can't see as women, and how we've been conditioned in the male dominated world, of how our past can actually unfold, what we're really meant to be doing, because we've been so blocked from this feminine
Yes,
energy.
yeah, and brainwashed to almost think that it's unworthy. Like even
Yeah,
the way society brainwashes you to think being a stay-at-home mom is has no value or is like a silly thing to do. It kind
right.
of ties into that. Do you know what I mean? Because
It
people
does.
kind of look down on that and like,
Hmm.
but if you think about it, you're doing something very important by molding and raising your children.
Right, and that creates
Yeah.
community, and that changes how people are act later on in their world, because you're dealing with the inner child and the inner wounding and all of
Yeah.
that at that point. And so let's go into more about let's take a look at the time here, because I feel like we've already been
Yeah,
talking
I
for like
know.
half an hour, and I don't even realize, like, my gosh, here I'm trying to, do I even have the time up? I don't even have the time up. I think I'm just gonna flow with it. Okay, let's flow this. I'm gonna ask you about, because we're gonna go deeper into this in regards to your, I'm just looking at my notes here, the business aspect in regards to the oppressions that are happening, maybe keeping us away from, like, because you had your business come through and a vision, and maybe how these
Yeah.
oppressions in the medical field, and how we are as women, even society as a general, that's keeping us from actually creating some amazing things in the world, because we haven't been tapped into that energy. So let's take it, let's talk a little bit about, a little bit more about the oppressions that you're seeing as a doula with women right now, and then we'll go to break.
Okay, yeah. In birth, giving birth, correct?
Yeah, birth and the whole
Yeah.
process. I guess how whatever comes to you, and the whole process too of whatever
Yeah.
comes to you. Yeah, of being a mom.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, oh goodness, there's so much. It's like, where do I
There's
even
so much.
start?
Let's just take it like point form, and then we'll like get into the meat of it. Let's like leave
Okay.
it. We'll go to
Okay.
a break after. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think just taking away the, like, first of all, instilling the fear,
Right.
instilling the fear around birth as a society, taking away the moms, like disempowering women into the belief that they can give birth, they can do it,
Mhm.
they are strong enough, things like
Mhm.
that.
Like trusting
Making
our
women
bodies, right? Like that
trusting
whole
our
aspect,
bodies,
trusting our bodies.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the symbiotic relationship between like mom and baby through the whole birthing process. And with our society being so like go go go, it's like not being able to sort of like get in tune with your body, with your baby, and you know
Mhm.
how a lot of complications in pregnancy can actually come up because of all the stress, the
Yeah.
like the poor diet and this and all those things that lead you to end up needing more interventions regardless, like the high blood
Right.
pressure, which is something I had in both pregnancies because of
Yeah.
stress, but it
Right.
spirals into other things. So like I think as a society there just needs to be more of an emphasis on taking care of pregnant women,
Yeah.
and new moms. Like the fact that there's only 6 weeks of leave
Yeah.
is crazy to me.
In the
Like
US. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
at
And the
least
whole,
Canada is better. It's a
yeah,
year.
Canada is better in the year. I just know a lot of companies don't top. I was government, so I got top up, which was amazing.
That is
Like
amazing. Yeah.
that was amazing throughout my whole pregnancy. I got top up, but a lot of people don't get top up, so they have to take a salary cut, which is, you know, but this whole aspect of like what we're talking about, how we're treated as women, and even I didn't think of it before, that when we're in the pregnancy alone, it's almost like we're treated like we're sick, or we're like there's something wrong,
Yeah.
and that, like you're saying, that can manifest in other things, which is
Mhm.
like I had high blood pressure too, which is like it only went
Yeah.
up to 100. I wanted a home birth with my second, but my blood pressure went from 120 over 80, which is normal, but for me at the time that was very low. So when it's
Oh, okay.
right, but when you're saying that in my pregnancy, I had a very stressful pregnancy because
Yeah.
I was going through marital problems at the time. I had a 2-year-old when a
Yeah.
23-month-old by the time I gave birth, and having them
Same
close
as
together.
me, 23-month-old.
Oh my
That's
god!
what, like, we not it's crazy.
We're so married. That's so hilarious. Um, and we're discovering it on the podcast, so I love that. So like having all of that, and then like the trauma of that. Now that you're saying that, I believe not being nurtured during my second pregnancy, I gained so much weight too that I was
Yeah.
trying to fill a void. I feel,
Yeah.
and all of that contributed, not being nurtured even throughout the pregnancy or honored for my
Yeah.
feminine instincts or what I knew what I wanted,
Yeah.
completely innate, like, created my blood pressure to go up, and I had to have a hospital birth with
Yeah.
midwives, but it was still, I couldn't have that home birth because of those
Right.
things.
No, that's so true. And like that is one of the things that I experienced too. And like not feeling like I was being nurtured and both pregnancies and having the high blood pressure and having to
Right,
take on everything. Pregnancy is a time where people should be taking care of you emotionally, physically, mentally, all the
yeah,
way, spiritually. And it's funny because my mentor, I did the doula training with this weekend, she says that a lot of times when you're giving birth, you need to conserve your energy for pushing, right? And a
right,
lot of, so like, you have to be quiet and like push labor down is what they
quick thing.
say. And then
Right,
when women are like you're expelling all this energy that you need to conserve to push the baby. And she
mhm,
has a theory that the reason why women do, she's like, the more the partner's not paying attention to them, the more they scream. Because every laboring woman wants their partner to pay attention
oh.
to them and care for them. She's like, and the men are always on their phones. And I truly believe there's like a kind of like the men need to step up. No
No,
offense.
that is actually true because, okay, so like in my ex-marriage, my husband couldn't step up in real life, but I'll tell you, labor delivery, he was there with me. He was connected. I was like,
That's
why can't you be
amazing.
like this every day of my life? But
Right.
he was there. It actually made
Yeah.
me want to have more babies with him because
That's
he was
amazing.
present. He was there. But as soon as the
Yeah.
baby came and the responsibility came, like he was gone. Like
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is a thing because I know that's a rarity for men to be that way. I don't know what it was with
Hmm.
my ex, like he was tapped into that point, but
Yeah.
I can see how men aren't tapped in at that point
And
because
it's,
it's
yeah, and it's,
bringing up, yeah,
yeah, it brings up like it's a lot for them to deal with, and like it's just funny her having seen so many births and her
yes,
noticing pattern,
I
noticing
definitely
a
think it's a
pattern.
thing.
Yeah, but I mean, and like even with the blood pressure and like it's like one more risk factor that can take away like the chance of the home birth or more complications. You have high blood pressure, okay. Now
Right,
you need more monitoring. We need to monitor the baby more. You need an IV, and like
right.
every new intervention just increases your chance of more interventions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when we really think about what natural birth is like, it even starts before the conception point, really. If you really think about it in your
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
how you're honoring your feminine energy, how
Mhm.
you're falling into that, and then when the
Yes.
creation and the baby and you get pregnant, it's a continuation of that. And I think most women tend to wake up at the point when they get pregnant of that
Yeah.
feminine energy, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I hope those listening to this can then kind of tap into themselves and be like, okay, I can hear what Chantal is saying. I can hear what's happening in our world. I'm now pregnant. I'm going to have my baby. How do I fall into this feminine energy? So we're gonna talk a little bit more after the break.
Okay.
We're gonna take a brief break because this conversation is amazing. It's 111, so it's definitely time to take a break. And we'll be right back, guys. We're talking to Chantal. She is an entrepreneur of Lavendula Skincare and a doula, and we're talking about natural birth. And we'll be right back at the Great Break podcast in a few moments. Hey guys. this little advertisement is for Chantel because, you know, she's been a client of mine, but she's also become a friend. And she's giving away an offer for Lavendula Skincare products, which can be used even if you're not pregnant because it's made out of 100% natural products, lavender, some other elements that she puts in there. But if you want to get this amazing discount at 30% off your purchase, you can find the link down below by clicking it, and at the cart, you will see the 30% discount. Or if you would like to use the code in all capitals, Great Break, again in all caps, Great Break, go ahead and take her up on this amazing offer for being on the podcast and her generosity. Take a look at her products, and I hope that her wisdom has been able to help you on your own journey and coming into your sacred feminine powers of birthing and labor and delivery. So thank you, Chantal, for that. And of course, guys, if you want to work with me, come take a look at all the work that I'm doing for sacred feminine energies. Take a look at my website, how I'm helping people. And if you'd like to be a guest on my show, come to the Great Break podcast, fill out the application, have a little session with me, see if we get along. You want to bring awareness to the world. I'm all about leveraging you guys. So, yeah, hit me up. We can definitely do something and work together. And, coming into the new year, I just want to add this to all of those out there. We're coming into a new state of consciousness here on the planet. And so everything that I'm trying to bring forward to you guys is to empower you in your journey. And so these guests are here to help you on your journey and to leverage them as well, so we can create an amazing network of consciously awakened humans that are here to be their best selves and to serve the creator. All right, let's get back to the show. Welcome back, guys, to the Great Break podcast. I'm Rena Wells, and I'm here with Chantal Mirza, who is a birth doula and owns Lavendula Skin Products. And I'm super excited to have her back. We did record this, but we're coming back after the break, and we are talking now about natural birth and the roadblocks that Chantal has experienced personally and what she sees through her practice in the medical field that disempower women. So let's go into that a little bit, Chantal, so our listeners can understand maybe some points of where they may actually they're being disempowered in their intuitive knowing, or
Mm-hmm.
their gut feeling of what's happening to their bodies and whatever else. What are some of those roadblocks that you're seeing in our medical field?
Well, there's so many, but I'll just bring up some of the ones that I sort of like
Yeah.
experienced. And I think it really boils down to like not the medical providers like not trusting the woman's own innate wisdom and treating her like a patient, or like yeah, like a patient, or like someone who is not a part of the whole process. Like for
Right.
example, when I went in for my induction with my son, like um I had to get a Foley, and the woman was like, "Oh, you're gonna be on that Foley for like 12 hours," and like I ended up dilating within like 3 hours, and she did not believe it. She's like, "It fell out," and she's like, "Oh, it must have just fallen out. There's no way you dilated to 5." Like, no, for sure not. I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure I did because I've been doing squats and like doing all this stuff, and so
Right.
she was wrong, of course, but like a lot of the medical providers, they're just in the way that they talk, they're so disempowering, and
Yeah.
they don't believe in the woman's ability to give birth, and they
Right.
sort of almost act as though they're the ones doing it. Like we were just talking about, they're the ones
Right.
giving birth. You are the patient. Birth is happening to you. Like you're not really a part of this process. So
Yeah.
there's, and I mean, like, just comes down to like little things like if a woman doesn't want to have an IV, or if a woman wants intermittent fetal monitoring, so she
Right.
can move around during labor. a
Right.
lot of
That's what
times
I
they don't
did.
want that. Yeah, they want
Yeah.
you glued to the bed, but it's like, how's a baby gonna come out if you're lying there glued to the bed? You gotta move,
Yeah.
and
My
it's like,
my OB didn't want to check me on all fours. Like I felt better on all fours
yeah, yeah,
in
and
the
how a
doggy
lot of women
position. Yeah.
do. Yeah,
Yeah. And she didn't want to check me. And she
yeah,
laughed at my birth plan.
yeah.
So
See, that's just a perfect example, like laughing at your birth plan, not believing in you that you can have this natural birth that you know you can have.
right. Exactly.
Yeah,
And I mean, I can't really like I'm like, where does the blame come from? But I mean, we have been suppressed for eons, our divine feminine energies. And so I know there's a rise that's happening up right now. And so it really disempowers women and like you're saying, and their ability to birth. And so where did your confidence come from? Like digging deep inside of yourself, like where to like first of all to do natural, right? Because I know a
yeah,
lot of women are like, whatever else, I don't know
right.
about that. But then the confidence also once you did it.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I was a little bit overconfident going into my first birth. Like,
Okay,
I
yeah,
was just like, I can totally do this. Like, I read a lot of books, and I think all the information that you surround yourself with is going to influence you. Like, if you're constantly reading up
definitely.
like horror stories or like listening to your doctor who doesn't believe in natural
Oh
birth
my
or things
God,
like that.
you're bringing memory up because I used to watch a TLC Natural Births, and I when I was
Yeah.
pregnant with my first, I had to stop watching it because they were so traumatic. It made me so
Yes.
scared.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of women have to like protect what they read when they're pregnant because it's such a mental game, like the whole birthing process and like having that, um, like the strength to get through. It's really mental. And also like the people you surround yourself with, like my doula has really helped me
Yes.
believe, like my doula was like, you are made for this. Like you can do this. And she was an older lady. Um, she had done like over like 3,000 births and like
Wow.
I was like, if this woman who's watched 3,000 women give natural birth, she knows this can be done, and she believes in me, and it made me believe
Right.
in myself, right? So I think that seeking out someone older is very key, or and I mean
Mhm.
even younger, but like I think having like a mentor, someone older who has really seen it been done many
Yeah.
times.
That you feel
That
confident with that boosts you in your own confidence, right? Because
Yeah,
mine
exactly.
mine did that for me completely. And she
Yeah,
said to me, Rena, the fear is inside of you. If it's
right.
inside, you can overcome it. And that was a click in my head. I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's inside of me. My body's surrounding it, then I'm bigger than the fear. Like that literally
Exactly.
gave me courage.
Yeah, yeah. And like, yeah, that's so true. And just like, I think just like knowing that women have been doing it without medication, that's what we were made to do. And I think
Yes.
that's really powerful. And then what was the other? Oh, I
Well, even
lost
the
it.
act of like, well, even that whole act of like what you're saying, like we have such an important gift by the creator to like bring in souls. Like we transmute
Yeah.
souls into this world. And
Yes.
that we're not seen as that in this world. Like we're not
Mm-mm.
seen that that's a powerful thing, that raising children is a very powerful thing. It's the next generation or
Yeah.
building a home and building community because that's their stability, for our
Yeah.
children to create like I remember reading somewhere, we're not raising children, we're raising adults. Like
Yeah.
they're going to be adults one day, and it's a very
Yeah.
important role. And
It's
so,
like the whole next generation.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
and even the act of sex, like if you think of how far it's been taken away from creation,
yes,
like just how our society is just completely like it's crazy. You could go really deep,
really deep.
but
Because even
yeah,
sex has shame around it and
yeah, and
stigmas,
even
and it's,
pregnancy in a lot of
yes,
cultures is like you don't want to show you're pregnant because that means you had sex or like that's shameful that you're pregnant, which is like it's
yes,
very natural thing. And if people were more talking about it, if it became even women were more open about learning about pregnancy and things like that, they
mhm,
would be a lot more empowered in the birthing and motherhood journey, I believe.
totally. Even like
Yeah.
you're bringing up, like when my first child was born, I took pictures of her, like with she was just out of the womb, and she still had like
Yeah.
all the gook on her and everything. And my mom's like, "Nah, send that." My little Caribbean family, and they're Islam, but they're like, "Don't send that to grandma. You can't do that with the blood and all that stuff. That's not." I was like,
Yeah.
"Why? That's natural. Like that's she's fresh out." I thought she looked
Yeah.
beautiful. I know
Yeah.
maybe that sounds gross to some people,
No,
but
I
it's
don't
like,
think so. It's
oh, right?
amazing, right? Yeah, and like
Yeah.
that's one thing I really, really regret because when I had my first, I was still like had a little bit of that shame. I didn't get a birth video. I didn't have a lot of
Mm,
pictures. I didn't want people taking my picture. Now I'm like, I would do anything to have that on video.
right?
Like,
Totally. I wish
oh
I
my
did that
god.
too. And it was
Yeah.
almost like when I wanted to see myself, my doula gave me a mirror with the first one to
Yeah.
look. And I was traumatized when I saw the baby crowning. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't deal with this right now.
No.
But
So
now I wish I did
yeah.
witness
I
that.
know. And like it's funny because even when you're the one who's given birth, you don't realize how miraculous it is. I didn't realize till I witnessed my first birth of someone else and I started
Oh, wow.
crying. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa, like it was like a moment where I was like, this is amazing. The fact that women do this every day, the fact that I've done this twice, like
Right?
why? Like it was like a real epiphany, and I was like, "Women are badass. Like this is crazy. This is not just average. This is not just normal every. Like this is really, really like a superpower." And when I was growing up, people would always say stuff like that, like, "Oh, women are superheroes," and like I always thought that was silly. But now it's like I really get it. Like no, there is this
Mm-hmm.
initiation into motherhood and the birth and like it is something sacred and it is something
Mm-hmm.
powerful and it is something to be cherished. And I think that a lot
I
of
agree.
society tries to like downplay it. Yeah. And the OBs
Completely.
try and take that power away from women, that they're not the
Completely.
one birthing.
Completely. I even had a female OB, which shocked me that she was
Yeah.
so disconnected from her own feminine energy that she was unable to support me in those
Yeah.
moments because she was so indoctrined with that
Mhm.
control factor.
Yeah, and it also comes back to their bias because there was a story of a nurse, a mom who wanted to have a natural birth, and
Hmm.
it wasn't going well. The nurse came up to her and she said, "You're gonna get an epidural, honey." She's like, "I wanted to have a natural birth too, but I had two C-sections," and like, so like, and she said that to the mom who's in labor. It's like, oh, you think you can do it? Well, I didn't do it. I was so stupid to think I could have a natural too, but it didn't work. So it's like they put their bias on you or their own. Like if it didn't go well for them, they try and pin that on someone else, right? So
Right. There is definitely a divide there. I know when I say that I birth naturally, and I remember going to a parent group thing with my baby, and another one was there, and she's like, "Well, I birth naturally too. Just because I had a C-section doesn't mean it's not natural." And
yeah,
so there's definitely like this
hmm
separation that happens with our sisters, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
of
And it's like it's a shame because it's like I think it's a tricky situation because
it
like
is.
ultimately, like a lot of people, the goal should be vaginal birth. Like that's what I preach as a doula. But there are
Yes.
situations where it has to be a C-section, or there's a situation where it didn't have to, but it just ended up that way, and it was a disservice to that woman. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people, instead of dealing with that almost trauma of like that didn't need to happen,
Right.
they have to defend it, which is fine. I guess it's
I understand that.
understandable. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's tricky, because it's like, and then, yeah, you don't want to like make someone feel bad, but it's like, we need to do better for
Right.
our women. And that's why that's kind of my passion in being a doula
Right.
is like,
Completely. I love that
yeah,
because if we can start changing the narrative so that women also don't have shame about the way that they did give birth, if they did end up having a
yes,
C-section, they
yes,
are a product of what's happened, of where they just didn't get the support or the knowledge or the love or
right.
the mothering that
hmm
they were totally meant to have. You know, maybe
Yeah.
that could have changed. And so you're saying, like, if we can change that in our world and the work that you're doing, right? Which I think is amazing what you're saying, that it's the OBs, like birth is not a thing that happens to you. It's like, what was that? The birth doesn't happen.
Yeah, like the OBs try and take that they were the ones who birthed your
Right.
baby. It's like, no, the woman birthed her baby, whether it was C-section or vaginal, like you did that. You know
You
what
are
I mean?
doing it. Right.
Right.
And get
And
that confidence, because like I see that, like the women, it's like, oh, the obstetrician had to do that, and then they rush me in and they did all of that, and that that is taken out of, away from the woman, and the strength that she had to hold, the courage that she had to hold in
yeah,
that moment, and the aspect of that confidence level that
yeah,
pushes you after birth. Talk to me about your confidence level as a woman, and as you know, how you've taken that through your own birth experience into like your business, that confidence level.
yeah. I think it just kind of happened naturally, like through giving birth and also through being a mom. It's kind of like you
Mm.
have no choice but to like buck
Right?
up and like, like,
It's like a child is nursing on me all day. It's like I
yeah,
just have to deal. Yeah.
right. And just like, it's almost like your children give you the strength too. Like with me starting my business, it's like, it's like, I don't know if it's, I don't exactly know how it happens or how it works, but it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I just kept thinking of like, I want to make them proud. I feel like they brought in all this extra like ambition to just like do more. And like, I just feel more confident in it. And it's funny, the confidence, like even now, if I'm like out without my kids, I'm so used to being around them all the time. If I'm like walking down the street and they're not there, I feel empty. I'm like not as confident. I'm like, where am I? Why am I walking here alone?
Right? It's like that mama bear kind of comes out, and you can like be in that mama bear and that like confident. I completely hear that, because even like my own intuition, like my daughter brought through reopened my psychic gifts again and had me doing
Wow.
readings and all. Like there's something
Yeah.
that happens with our children that they bring to
Yeah.
us. They really
Mm-hmm.
do. It's such a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. Not just to have a little piece of you. I know a lot of people want to have babies because they're a little piece of you, but there's like a beautiful soul contract that happens, that they give you so many more gifts in ways that you never thought
Yes.
you could have. Like your
Yeah.
business. Like your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally believe my son brought like the confidence and like the ideas and like, yeah, I just like think of him like even when I was pregnant, I could sense his like he was a very
Mm,
strong, sturdy soul, and I just felt that presence like around me. And even now,
right?
I feel it. Like I sent you that picture, remember?
Yes.
He's just like this little
It's
baby,
like
but
this
like
little Buddha. He's a Buddha. He sits there like he knows everything already.
right, and it's like okay, I gotta make this little Buddha proud, like. But I think he brought it in too, like with his soul. Like they bring with them their own gifts, and you birth
Mhm.
them through your body. So there's bound to be like I guess
There's like that energetic connection. Like there's something
yeah,
definitely
exchange or
there.
connection. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
fascinating.
It is. It is. 'Cause I remember with my daughter, there was an aspect of, she's so intuitive, right? And like I could
Mm-hmm.
not eat chicken with that child. Like to this day, she can't
Oh,
eat chicken. You know, I was
oh,
so tapped into her food at that
yeah,
point. And even
yeah.
the whole psychic stuff and everything else, like she brought in what I was meant to be doing. So,
Wow. That's so funny you mentioned about the food because my son was allergic to, like when he was born, he had colic. I couldn't eat wheat, dairy, soy, eggs, and I cut all that stuff out of my diet. And it was like this spiraling effect of like learning that I'm sensitive to dairy and that I had Lyme
oh,
disease and like one thing led to the other because of him. And my health has improved so much since cutting those things out. So I truly believe it was like him bringing that to me.
oh, they do. They level us up in ways that we never
Yeah.
thought possible. And especially the souls that are coming in now, like our
Yeah.
children are very, very tapped in. Like they need that stability from us. And to any of the listeners that are listening, and if you're pregnant or planning a family, like the souls that you're bringing down now are completely different, like, from 20 years ago or whatever else. Like there's definitely a higher sensitivity and a psychic thing
Yeah.
and these gifts that are coming in. And so we're dealing with a lot of this, like we're birthing these highly sensitive babies in these systems where really it's like a spiritual warfare if you think of it, because we're bringing such
Yeah.
high frequency souls through us
Mm.
into a system that's really highly controlled. Especially since COVID, I knew some women couldn't
Yeah.
even birth with their husbands there because of COVID. And
Yeah.
there's so many different things like that are happening in the US too, with the abortions and the, like there's so much things around
Yeah.
birth and mom and all of this. And so let's go into that a little bit more about the spiritual warfare that you're
Yeah.
seeing.
So I think that's so true, and it's very powerful. And like when you mentioned bringing in the highly sensitive souls, and like I do believe that there's like, I don't know if it's a conspiracy or what, but it's almost like to oppress that sensitivity, because a
Yeah,
lot of these medications and things cover that, and we know that like trauma and things like that also can shut down certain parts of us, or
right,
cause issues that manifest later on. But like some of the things that I know that I kind of had a realization that like the way that they treat the infant immediately after birth, and also the
right.
mom as giving birth, is can be looked at as like a spiritual warfare, with like just the fact that okay, they immediately cut the cord. They don't want to do the delayed cord clamping. They don't want to.
Right.
They just immediately just sever that bond. They immediately whisk away the baby, start rubbing it down. They put the eye goop on their eyes.
Yes, the eye
Yeah,
goop, because I
they
didn't
don't.
get the gaze with my daughter. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because like in ideal situation, baby should be placed on mom's chest. They gaze. They say that that gaze is very important to the bonding and the attachment and the way their nervous system is set up for the rest of their life. So
right.
those moments, like they call it the golden hour, that hour after
Uh,
birth should be protected. And if they can delay
mm.
the infant exam, that would be ideal. But all these hospitals are like so fear based, and like that
And
they,
so when the baby's placed there, that cord is still pumping. I'm just trying to give that to
yeah,
the listener. So the baby, the the most, I guess natural, the best way, I guess, is, I want to say best. I don't know the right word for it, but ideal, right?
yeah,
Situation would
ideal,
be the baby comes out, the baby's placed on your breast, on your chest. The cord is not cut right away. There's still the pulsing that can happen. And then you
yeah,
get the eye stare, which I didn't realize until we
yeah,
recorded the first time that I had bonding issues with my daughter because
yeah,
they took her away, they whisked her away, they cut the cord right
yeah,
away. Like it was all so traumatic that I had a harder
hmm,
time bonding with her. Where my son, I was able to pull him out, look at him, the cord wasn't cut right away. We had the gaze. And
yeah,
I had an easier time bonding with him. Like I never,
hmm,
until we recorded the first time. So
yeah,
that whole aspect that you're talking about is they really do interrupt that hour that you're
yeah.
saying.
And if you think about that, that forms the attachment that could be setting up their nervous system for all of their relationships
Mm,
for the rest of their life. And think about how that
so
ripple
true.
effect can go on through society, right? When we talk about like the trauma and the attachment styles, and like, yeah, it's crazy. So it's really powerful. And it's like, it's so crazy that you notice the different bonding
Yes.
through the different, yeah, and the skin to skin. And it's like, if you
Skin to
think about it,
skin. Yeah.
it's less traumatic for them because they still feel you, the temperature, like
Hmm.
they still have the cord, and like they're still with the body and that they were in for
Hmm.
9 months. They're not just with strangers
Right.
poking and prodding them, and
Right. The
doing all,
smell probably of the
yeah,
mom. I know the
yeah,
smell was big with my daughter. Like I used to have to put
yeah,
if I put her down, I'd have to put my shirt with her.
yeah, yeah. And it's crazy because thank God they've come farther where they were when they would whisk the baby away to the nursery and
Right.
like wouldn't even be around the mom. Now they have like the in room, they have the baby in the room with you and stuff. Like I know
Yeah.
back in the day it was even kind of worse. Like, and they have
Yeah.
moms are awake for a C-section before they used to be completely asleep. So imagine how can you
Right.
bond? You're like not even awake, you know?
Right. And
So
you wake up and there's this child there. You're like, what is this? Right. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So there's definitely a lot of spiritual warfare that's happening with the interventions, and I mean, we understand that there could be medical aspects that are
Need.
going
Yeah.
on and needs for it. But I feel like what we're doing this podcast for is to bring this awareness to the women to maybe, question things and their own self autonomy and what their instincts are telling them and what their
Yeah.
soul is telling them and what they want to experience with their
Hmm.
baby. And so tell us a little bit more about how you're doing that, like through your work, building maybe some confidence in running your business and what you're bringing in your products to help women, and also through your doulaship and building building your own confidence and like how to provide that through doulaship. And
Yeah.
can you interlink, how your business is helping women, how you're helping as a doula, how you're bringing this
Yeah.
awareness
Well, like
to
right
the
now,
collective.
as a doula, I just I can't put my views on people. I have to allow
Right.
them to make their own decisions. I can kind of educate and help lead them in the right direction. So like
Right.
I always encourage people to like create a birth plan just to get them thinking. And then a lot of
Right.
women could benefit from like a childbirth education where you can learn some of this stuff. I'm recommending books to them just to get them thinking in that
Right.
direction. Because some people, they never even thought about that or they don't quite realize how it will be. And
Right.
when it's, I think it's good. Like it's important. So
Yeah.
people need to put a lot of thought into it, research, educate themselves, create a
Right.
birth plan. And like, I can encourage them to like ask questions, but like long term, I would love to like put out more content of like educating people like this. I don't know, on YouTube or
Mhm.
wherever. But right now I'm kind of just more boots on the ground, like doing the doula work.
Yeah. That's exciting
Yeah.
work too, though. Like to witness,
Yeah.
like you were saying, witnessing births and things like that. That's
Yeah.
so empowering. And just even like what you're giving tidbits to women and women that are listening to you now in regards to, what would you, the confidence, what would you say to women like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. You're talking a little bit like, crazy over here, or I trust the medical field and the doctor, but
Yeah.
they're having some kind of inkling, because obviously they wouldn't be listening to our podcast if they weren't having some kind of
Right.
inkling at this point, to maybe share about how you would encourage them to maybe trust those little nagging feelings they're getting
Yeah, and
now.
I think that like you said, that's a huge indicator. Like if you're having that inkling, then don't just shut it down. Like open
Right.
it up. Like explore, look into, where is that leading you? Where is your intuition leading you? And
Mm.
know that when you're following your intuition, the medical system may not always be on board. So you have to prepare yourself that we've been conditioned to just accept, accept, accept what they tell us, but it's like they will. And I know my mentor, the woman I mentor, has told me that, medical professionals, you know, unfortunately, like they will bold face lie to you at times. Like, I
They
know it's not great,
do.
but
They
yeah, right,
do.
right. So it's like, I mean, they're like, I don't know what that's all about, but it's important to have your own knowledge to be educated. Everyone's
Right.
human, everyone has their own bias. At the end of the day, it's your body. You're the one who has to deal with all the repercussions that come out of your
Mhm.
birth, that come out of your those first moments of bonding,
Right.
that come out of all the decisions you make throughout your pregnancy. You don't let your OB be the one directing you. It's your body, it's your life, and you are the one that will have to live with that for the rest of your life. For example, say if things don't go well, like
Mhm.
you need to be in charge of that. So educate yourself, look into
Mhm.
all the things, don't necessarily just believe everything that your doctor says. And get a second opinion. Like there's just so many things that how women can be involved. Hire a doula. That's a
Yes,
huge one. That women can be more involved in the whole process.
totally.
Yeah.
That's so empowering just hearing you speak that way, Chantal, because like honestly, it's like there's so much trust that we put, into
Hmm.
our obstetricians. I know growing up in my family, it's like we're Indian family, like, oh, doctor, doctor,
Yeah.
like this is the thing. They're educated,
Hmm.
they know what they're doing. And we have
Yeah.
been conditioned that way where it takes away from our own instincts, like you're saying. And so,
Yeah.
I think women listening to this and hearing what you have to say is really important because we need to question those things so that we're honoring, like you said, we have
Hmm.
the repercussions. Like I didn't realize I had birth trauma
Yeah.
until I talked to you. And that was
Yeah.
17 friggin' years ago,
Yeah. I know a lot of women have birth
right?
trauma. It's so common. I
And
had
that
I had
carries
birth trauma.
throughout.
Yeah,
Like I'm
it
telling
really
you, it's
does.
caused issues with my own children. I'm like, oh, this is I didn't bond with my daughter at this point. I didn't
Yeah.
it brought up my own insecurities in my own self that I couldn't bond. Like it
Hmm.
it it carries on. It's not just the birth is over and done. It's like it
Yeah, it really does. And like there's obviously like, like there's things that can be done, but like yeah, you're the one that has to deal with it. Like, it's serious. It's serious
yeah.
stuff. And it's like it's your own life. You gotta take it seriously. And even for me it's hard. It's actually easier for me to stand up when it's someone else's birth.
Mhm.
But
Right.
like when it's me or like my kids, because like even having kids, I'm having to stand up to medical people at times, like about their
Hmm.
health or like I
Hmm.
always get a little nervous because you always
Right.
think that the doctor is gonna think that you don't know what you're talking about or think that you're silly, stupid or
Hmm.
whatever. But you just have to find that like mama bear in you and like this is for my best interest. And a lot of
Hmm.
times you will surprise them because if you are educated, you know,
Yeah,
you'll catch them on their stuff. Like they'll be like, "You're
for
right,"
sure.
like because they
For
know,
sure.
and if you know, they don't expect you to know too. So that's why education is so important.
So important. And to call them
Yeah,
out so that you are educated and you know what you're talking and you're following your instincts so that they can, have a decent conversation with you instead of brushing you aside.
yeah.
So let's go more into your business. How do you see things progressing in the world with what you're doing? What are your next steps? What are you looking at with Lavendula products and
Um,
all of that?
well,
What are you
I'm
doing?
just looking to like obviously expand. Like I think that my products are so good for pregnant women. Like everyone that's used them loves them. They're made with love, and I truly believe in like the power of like floral medicine. I don't know if you've
Yes.
ever looked into that.
Oh, anything
Like
with
the
plants. I love
energy.
the plants. So plant
Yeah.
energy
So
and
like,
natural.
there's the
Yeah.
energy behind everything, like with the rose essence and like so our belly oil has like the lavender and rose. And I think that doing that
I
self-care
love
when you're
that.
pregnant, or the birth oil has the clary sage, which can help with going into labor. And I want to just expand. I want to do a baby oil. I want to do a face oil. One of the girls that I sent my belly oil to uses it in her hair.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wow.
okay. Like she loves, people just use it all over because they love the smell. They love that it's all natural. So I'm just like, this has got me going. Like I need to expand. So I got that going on one side. I got the doula. I want to expand eventually to do more education and like put out YouTube videos, help women to know why it's important to have a doula, and
Right.
maybe help things go more mainstream. And two, like obviously we don't want to go against the medical field. We want to work together with them ideally.
For
Maybe
sure.
educating medical staff.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to like create systemic change for everyone.
I completely hear that. You're bringing like such awareness to the planet, Chantal, and everything that you're doing and the products that you're bringing out, like with the plants and the natural, essence of that. Like it's so important because, Mother Earth is our home and she grows our medicines,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
there's something definitely that's connected, that we can connect to Earth with our bodies, with our
Yeah.
babies and
Yeah, and
all of that.
you made me realize that like having gone through the birth trauma and all the anxiety, I've
Right.
wanted to start like my own herbal remedies for pregnant women. So like for anxiety, for postpartum blues, for
Oh,
postpartum depression, like things like that. Because when I was pregnant, that's what I would take. I would take like all the natural stuff. So I've always wanted to do that. I just haven't gotten to that. But I think I might branch that off of Lavendula and kind of branch into like the herbal
oh my God, like
tinctures.
natural teas and things like that, or like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of got in my mind. So that's been in
that's
my mind for a
amazing.
while. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. Even like, yeah, you could definitely branch out and do all kinds of different things naturally for women and for, I love the massage oil thing for the babies too.
Yeah.
There's this,
Yeah.
we're very big in our Indian culture with the massage and we have songs
Yeah.
to go along with it. Like
Oh,
there's,
that's so cool. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, massage is so.
there's this one song because it was my son's birthday yesterday, and so my mom is here, and she's like,
Oh,
Ethan, do you remember the song we did as a massage? He's like, yes, mom. He's like, Eka Baka Ting
oh,
Palawa. It's like a Hindi kind of
that is so cool.
thing, and he's remembered the song from when he was born,
Oh my
like
gosh,
from the
I
time he was
love that.
little.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
massage and human touch, like it's so underestimated in our, like, I feel like it's not as common even in our today's
no,
world. Yeah.
even baby wearing and all that stuff. Like I see more women doing it, which
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love.
Yeah.
Like all of
Yeah.
those things are coming out. Like women, are wearing their babies more and being with
Yes.
their babies and co-sleeping and
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a huge movement towards that. And a lot of people say it's like just like granola or hippie, but I think it's becoming a little more mainstream.
definitely, definitely. Okay, Chantal, I could talk to you forever about this.
I
So
know. I'm like, there's so
we're
many things. My mind is going.
so many. We're gonna definitely have you back because we're gonna definitely get into more about as your business expands. We're gonna talk more about all the new ideas and things that you're bringing to the world and your products and
Yeah.
all of that because I really believe in everything that you're doing for women. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. Well,
Thank you
what
so
would you?
much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Like I love this conversation. What would you like to leave with all the listeners? What would you like to leave with them today?
I guess if you're, woman or man, just believe in your own inner wisdom, believe in
Mm,
yourself, believe in your strength. And if you're pregnant or looking to become pregnant, definitely look into hiring a doula. Do your own research, empower yourself. And I guess this goes for any medical issue. Empower
yeah,
yourself, educate yourself. Yeah, I think that's kind of
yeah.
what I would leave them with. I could go on, but I
Amazing.
won't.
Amazing. Amazing, Chantal. Thank you so much for being on the show. You guys, if you want to check out Chantal, all her information is there in the tags down below. Make sure you check out her Instagram, follow her, check out her products. Again, you don't have to be pregnant to use her products. You can put it in your hair, you can use it all over your skin. Take a look at what she's bringing to the world. And yeah, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show. And
Yeah, thank you so much.
you're so
Thanks for
welcome.
having me. Yeah, Lavendula Skincare, and I also use the belly oil all over, like after the shower. I'm just like, I'm not pregnant, but I love
I'm
it.
definitely gonna go order some because I'm here. I think I need to like try this belly oil.
It's really good. Thank you so much
So
for having me.
you're so welcome. I loved it. I love talking about babies and stuff and all of this. It's so amazing the feminine energy that comes out. It's great. You guys don't forget to take a look at Chantal, like, subscribe, and we'll be back again in a couple weeks with another show. Take care, everyone.